I want to talk about how we see our cities and what we may want from our city spaces. What does light say about our city spaces or ourselves? Can it say anything? Is there anything we would be interested in changing about our cities or how we light them? And if so, how much do we truly want to change? During this talk, I'll be showing images of my own work, which I hope will relate, sometimes tangentially and sometimes more directly to the text, but I won't be directly addressing my own projects. Neither will I sing, but I do want to say a few words from a song or two. They say the neon lights are bright on Broadway. They say there's always magic in the air. But when you're walking down the street and you ain't had enough to eat, the glitter rubs off and you're nowhere. We're thrilled by the city. We're scared of the city. We're comforted by the companionship of the city, yet we can feel apprehensive, alienated, and alone amongst millions. Our relationship with city spaces are full of contradictions, and I suggest that the irreconcilable opposites are what gives the city the frisson of exuberance and energy many of us seem to crave. We all know the thrill, and perhaps pleasure, of being somewhat scared. Fun fairs and horror films are a continuing testimony to the seemingly human desire to push ourselves out of our comfort zone into an arena where a measure of anxiety seems to be an affirmation of our being fully alive. So the city is a space of ambivalence, both a comfort and a threat, and despite the sort of scary statistics that suggest big city life must be a staging post within the 7 circles of hell, cities are growing in popularity as places where we want to live. Did you ever see Dallas from a DC-9 at night? Well, Dallas is a jewel. Dallas is a beautiful sight. And Dallas is a jungle, but Dallas gives off beautiful light. What sort of cities do we want to live within, then? Might seem a reasonable question to ask ourselves. The problem, perhaps, is that almost everyone will have a different answer to that question. We may think that we all want similar objectives, and a quick list of desirable attributes for a city could probably have a broad consensus of opinion, particularly, say, in this room. However, one person's peace and quiet is another person's dull. Whilst a clean street may seem attractive, to another it may be sterile and devoid of character. One garden's security light, whilst a comfort to one, will be annoying pollutant to another. I suppose all this seems like a long-winded way of saying you can't please all the people all the time. But it will be apparent that cities do in fact manage to fulfill seemingly contradictory roles in providing a large variety of qualities of space that, broadly speaking, do manage to satisfy disparate and contradictory requirements. The city, if successful, can seem to be all things to all men, and thus there can and should be a wide variety of qualities of city space. Perhaps we can extrapolate from that the idea that there is not a wrong or even a right way of illuminating our city spaces, but that context and perception are more important indicators of how to consider our lit city spaces. We can all agree, perhaps, that one of our most dominant receptors of what kind of space we're inhabiting is visual. So we take in the strongest immediate sense of the place we're in through our eyes. But as Joseph Rickwert suggests in his book, The Seduction of Place, perhaps planners and architects are insufficiently aware that the forms they produce will inevitably be assigned metaphoric value by the general public. Metaphoric projection is, after all, an elemental human activity, as advertising people know all too well. We sense spaces, and subconsciously even, ascribe to the space perceived various qualities and values that are not necessarily inherent within the space at all. We glimpse the dark and feel anxious. We see light and may be drawn to it. The dark seems scary. The light may seem alleviating or reassuring. Yet we all know that without shadow to compare, we stop seeing light. And there is nothing reassuring about light shining into your eyes and dazzling you. It's extremely irritating and alarming. We in the industrialized West have become used to our streets being illuminated as we pass through them. We are comfortable in a street that is lit efficiently, as we can see obstacles in our route laid out before us. Yet perhaps it is time to consider what efficiency may mean. In these days of anxiety about energy use, it may be incumbent upon us to consider alternative means of illuminating the streets we walk along and the roads we drive upon. We know, for example, that colour perception plays a role in our consideration of how safe a street may appear. We've become used to seeing streets lit with sodium light, which give a yellow-orange hue to everything it touches and affects our spatial perception, tending to flatten the scene and providing fallacious perspectives of any vista. We accept it because we've become accustomed to it. But a street lit with white light will offer a truer sense of the space perceived, offering a better colour rendition and greater clarity of condition. Most city streets are not solely lit by streetlights, though. Many will have illuminated shop windows, many are lined with internally illuminated dwellings that spill light outwards into the public realm. Again, I think we can take a form of comfort from such windows. We see a lit window and can envisage qualities of life being led behind them. We know there is humanity inside, and there is little doubt that we are attracted to sources of light. Where there is light, there is life. A Belgian professor, Philip de Burck, told of an experience he had in Africa. A small store at a country crossroads managed to acquire a generator which was sufficient to power a single 100-watt lamp. This lamp became a generator of a different kind. It attracted people. Before long, there was a bustling nighttime economy, as people from miles around would come to congregate in the welcoming glow of the single lamp. A broad area of interest in my work is centered around windows. Windows become important elements of any cityscape. They are the slender membranes between our private lives and our public spaces. They protect, reveal, and form the thresholds where we consider the dialectics of inside and out. Windows in the city allow a breach, an imaginative leap into lives led and spaces occupied. The colour of light spill may suggest a kitchen being worked in, or a lounge being relaxed in. Perhaps the flickering blue lights of a television set have become curiously the most prevalent light sources by which we glimpse existences. We can perhaps imaginatively inhabit these closed-off spaces, allowing ourselves a moment of imagined occupation of them. Are we seduced or repelled by what we envisage going on inside? I know that when I used to visit certain friends who lived in the country, I could see a window in their cottage a long walk away from where I was. But I took solace in the shining beacon as a sign of life and comfort waiting for me at my destination. How would it be if certain city streets were lit in specific colours? We have all heard of a red light district, but what if there was a blue light district? Would that be an area of administration or police activity? Could there be a purple light area where the blue light district met the red light district? I wonder. Is there a way we can pass comfortably down our city streets without them being permanently illuminated, whether there is anyone there or not? With current technology, it seems entirely plausible to have lighting that responds to a person in the vicinity. Perhaps motion detectors could be set so that 200 meters ahead is lit, but as we pass, the lamps fade to, say, 30%. What about the way that city buildings are internally illuminated at night? We all enjoy the spectacle of lit buildings glowing in our city vistas, but in these days of rising energy cost and desire for sustainable living, how feasible or desirable is it that our office blocks and towers are permanently lit through the hours of darkness and non-occupation? Surely, with current technology, there could be ways of, say, choreographing the illumination of such buildings. Could they be lit in clusters, for example? As one building fades up, another fades down. Could the floors be programmed so there are runs of illumination travelling up and down the structures? Perhaps animated by lift movement or folk on the stairs? Or city-wide groupings that certain clusters of structures stay lit for a period, and when they fade, another cluster fades up, so that the focus shifts across the city. It seems a profound lack to me that much attention is focused on the grand facades, but neglected estates which need the attention and could generate important behavioural differences receive none.